Well, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the break. We cut it a little short, so my apologies for that. Before we introduce our next panel, I want to recognize some more of our sponsors. Thank you to our bronze sponsors, Badlands Contracting, EMP Defense, Gallo Solutions, G2IT, KC Harvey Environmental, Knapp Oil Corporation, KT Enterprises, Roscoe Crane and Rigging, Tegri Corporation, Tenant Solutions, and the Theodore Roosevelt Expressway Association, as well as our media partners, Flag Family, Dakota Mornings with Michael Bell, and Mackenzie County Farmer News. Once again, we are grateful to all of our sponsors. Your support is much appreciated, and we really can't put on this event without you. Before we begin with our afternoon regulatory review, we are going to hear a video provided by my favorite U.S. Congresswoman from North Dakota, Julie Fedorchak.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Julie Fedorchak, and I'm proud to be your Congresswoman in Washington, D.C. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you. I sure wish I could be with you all in Watford City, but my work in Washington is really exciting and incredibly demanding right now, so I had to settle with one of these videos instead. This year's annual meeting is so timely. Just last month, I met with U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright in Grand Forks. He called North Dakota one of the best governed states with extraordinary energy potential, and he's right. We have the resources, we have the technology, and we have the right policies to lead the way in American energy dominance. My top priority in Congress is to secure America's energy future with reliable, affordable energy by focusing on grid reliability and permitting reform, amongst other things. In fact, I'm excited to share that this week, the House is voting on a bill I introduced, the Promoting Cross-Border Energy Infrastructure Act. This legislation will enhance North American energy collaboration by streamlining the permitting process for projects that connect U.S. energy resources with international markets. Under current law, the permitting process for cross-border oil, gas, and electricity projects involves a mix of presidential permits, agency-specific procedures, and executive discretion. This has led to regulatory uncertainty, project delays, and in some cases, permit revocations, such as the Keystone XL pipeline, which would have carried 830,000 barrels of oil a day from Alberta to refineries in the Midwest and Texas. If completed, that project would have been good for North Dakota communities too, more jobs and more tax revenue. But with the stroke of a pen on President Biden's first day in office, all the benefits of that project for North Dakota and America evaporated. My bill will replace the outdated and politicized presidential permitting process with a clear statutory framework. FERC will oversee applications for oil and natural gas pipelines, while the Department of Energy will manage applications for electric transmission facilities. It also establishes firm timelines for review and puts subject matter experts, not politicians, in charge of decisions. But most importantly, this bill gives developers the certainty they need to invest, hire, and build here in the United States. I'm looking forward to getting this to the Senate and hopefully to the President's desk. Another piece of legislation is my resolution to overturn the Biden administration's resource management plan for North Dakota. Plain and simple, this was a backdoor attempt to shut down fossil fuel development in our state. Nearly 99% of North Dakota's federal coal acreage, over 4 million acres, would have been locked away. Almost half of federally owned oil and gas acreage, over 200,000 acres, would be off the table. If not overturned, the plan would cost 12,000 North Dakota jobs and $34 million in state revenue a year. I'm glad the U.S. House passed my resolution to repeal this reckless plan, and I look forward to the Senate acting on it soon and preventing a future administration from making a rule like this. At the end of the day, we don't need bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. dictating one-size-fits-all restrictions that ignore the reality on the ground. That's why meetings like this are so important. The North Dakota Petroleum Council is on the front lines of advancing smart policies and practical solutions. The conversations you're having in Watford City ripple all the way to Washington, and they give me the insight I need to push for an energy framework that works for North Dakota. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you all today, even though through video. I look forward to continuing our work to provide the legal, tax, and regulatory framework needed to secure strong pro-growth energy policy for decades to come.
Okay, next up is our regulatory review by Eric Delzer, NDPC's Regulatory Affairs Manager. Following Eric will be Dustin Anderson, the Regulatory Manager with Chord Energy, and the Chairman of NDPC's Regulatory Committee, who will give us an operator's perspective. First, help me welcome Eric to the stage.
All right, thank you, Brady. See, I got the presentation up. There we go. All right, well, last year I stood up here and gave a pretty somber report about state of affairs around regulatory. If you look at where we started, the totals in the box there, that's all the regulations put out under the Biden administration and the previous administrations before that. A lot of those regulations were pushed out in the last year of the Biden presidency. Nearly $2 trillion worth of regulatory costs were added across all industries in the U.S. It's unprecedented compared to previous presidencies. Fast forward a year. What a difference a year makes. We had the Trump administration come in and on day one signed dozens of executive orders, many of them energy related, including declaring an energy emergency and in order to unleash domestic energy potential. He created the National Energy Dominance Council, which is chaired by our own former governor, Secretary Doug Burgum, and Secretary Chris Wright. Couldn't pick two better people for this position. One of the things they are charged with is creating an energy strategy for the United States based on energy dominance and to be advisors to President Trump in all matters energy related. The other thing that the administration has done is they have initiated the largest deregulatory effort in U.S. history. And where we're sitting now, as of last week, we have 29 proposed rules out there, 49 final rules. But the big thing is if you look at the numbers at the bottom, we're going the other way finally. Savings of $77 billion with the final rules that are put out, and of the current proposed rules, over $600 billion. We've seen some significant updates with some rules that were going to be very challenging for the industry. Under the BLM, the waste prevention rule, that was stayed by the courts. North Dakota is leading the lawsuit on that one with a number of other states. The North Dakota Resource Management Plan, that lawsuit was also enjoined in June. And as Congresswoman Fedorchak mentioned, last week they put out a CRA that was passed by the House. We're anticipating that being passed by the Senate as well. So we'll send that one back to the drawing board. Conservation and Landscape Health rule is also out for public comment now. And I just want to say thank you to North Dakota leadership for really sticking their necks out with litigation on all these issues. The EPA has seen some significant changes there as well. We have the waste emission charge that is that was repealed by a CRA, and the charge doesn't kick in for another 10 years. A number of the emissions rules are getting looked at, and hopefully industry can collaborate with the administration to make more common sense, streamlined regulations that can be lasting into the future. The big beautiful bill had some game-changing things in it for the industry. Just the no tax on overtime. You know, think of how big that is for all your employees out there. Guaranteed access to federal acres, and the 45Q tax parity, that could be game-changing for bringing EOR into the future in the Bakken. We've seen the first major permitting reform since 1970. They're going to be able to expedite permits much, much faster than they have in the past. There's a lot more work to be done. We're going to continue working on our advocacy. We really need to get a new BLM director. There's a number of other priority issues that we're really looking into, and we're going to continue to work with our federal trade partners to try and make a difference in those areas. Bottom line, North Dakota is positioned for continuous success. We're getting some regulatory relief, and we're laying the framework for the rollout of next generation technologies. So things are much more optimistic, still a lot of uncertainty out there, but we're trending in the right direction. And now I would like to bring up Dustin Anderson of Chord Energy. He is the chairman of our regulatory committee, and he's going to talk a little bit more about what our regulatory committee has been working on. Thank you, Dustin.
Thanks, Eric. Take a couple minutes to go through some of the things our membership and our subcommittees are working on. But before I do that, I'd like to express gratitude for the committee members, the 300 strong, and many of them are extremely active, keeping in mind that they have a day job, that this is added to that, and so we appreciate their efforts. Second, I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about the relationship we have with the governing bodies that both federal and state. Those relationships are extremely important, and the council has worked for years to establish a relationship of trust, and a lot of the things that we're able to accomplish, we wouldn't be able to without that relationship. So when I speak of those, I'm speaking of the Game and Fish, Wildlife Service, the DMR, the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality, the BLM, and the U.S. Forest Service. We work collaboratively hand in hand with them. Eric kind of walked through a lot of the changes that have gone on at the federal level, and those trickle down to the field offices, and then they have to do something with these changes, and sometimes there's not a lot of guidance. And so we lean on each other to kind of figure that out and keep the permitting flow moving and be compliant with these new rules. So would be remiss if I didn't recognize them. So as we think about some of the subcommittees for the Petroleum Council, one of the ones we're working on is these truck-mounted CMS systems. So the subpart, oh shoot, just forgot the subpart. That's what happens when you get in front of a bunch of people. 3074 doesn't really speak to the stationary truck-mounted LACT systems, and the language is really designed around the stationary LACT. And so there's a need to add or really add further clarity to that. So there's a subgroup that's working most out of the measurement teams of the various companies to look at what that language should be, working directly with the BLM field office in Dickinson, and then we will make some suggestions up and hope some of those are adopted. That will allow us to be more compliant with those systems. Second one that is becoming more and more important is this habitat conservation program. We've been working collaboratively with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to develop a mitigation banking for habitat. Specifically was designed around the Dakota skipper, and then the Regal flitterary came most recently. And so we are looking for opportunities to take habitat and then to mitigate it through these banks. Why that matters is unless there's a federal action, there's no real path, well, there is a pathway, but it's very long, 3 to 5 years, to be able to do construction or disturbance in these habitats. This will allow us to pay in advance, mitigate in advance, and keep these programs working and moving forward. One of them was Kelly Armstrong highlighted the importance of these pipelines. You can't build pipelines through some of these areas, and so this allows for a more streamlined process for those projects. Another one that I'm less familiar with, but is equally important, is the work that the committees are doing with the Department of Environmental Quality around a general permit for air quality permitting. This is super important. It allows the state to retain primacy over the EPA. It gives some assurance and some protection against potential litigation. So those are just a few of the committees that are highlighted. There are many more. The Endangered Species Committee is constantly working to keep the different operators up to date on the changing landscape. That's probably stabilized quite a bit more in the current administration, but there's always that potential for change. And so they're consistently watching that. And that is all I have to offer. I've got a couple of minutes if there's any questions. If not, I will wrap it up and give you 2 minutes back. Okay. Thank you very much.